Have you ever had that nagging feeling, that the government's power, this huge federal machine, could actually be turned against ordinary people unfairly?
It's a pretty unsettling idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really the core issue we're exploring today.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing a deep dive into a specific document, an executive order called Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Quite a title.
It really is. And that term weaponization, it's potent. It implies using government power, which should be neutral, right, as a tool for political gain or to target enemies.
And this executive order seems to be a direct reaction to claims that this very thing happened.
That's how it frames itself, yes. It doesn't pull punches.
No, it doesn't. It talks about the previous administration and alleges a systematic campaign against people they saw as political opponents.
And it lists specific methods, not just talk, but actions. Things like investigations, actual prosecutions, civil enforcement actions.
Yeah, and even getting the intelligence community involved. The agencies dealing with national security intelligence.
Which is significant. It suggests a broad use of different government levers, potentially, to disadvantage certain groups or individuals.
And the order raises some really serious concerns about why this might have happened. It suggests maybe the goal was more about inflicting political pain than seeking real justice or achieving legitimate government aims.
That's a heavy accusation. It implies a misuse of power at a fundamental level.
It does. And it even floats the idea that constitutional rights might have been violated. It gives examples like parents who spoke up at school board meetings or, just people criticizing the administration online or exercising basic rights.
Those examples are designed to resonate, I think. They involve citizens participating in democracy, and the implication is that maybe that very participation put them on the radar improperly.
Right. The language gets even stronger, too. It actually uses the phrase unprecedented third world weaponization of prosecutorial power.
Wow. That's incredibly stark language to find in a formal document like an executive order.
Yeah.
It really signals the level of seriousness, at least from the perspective of the current administration writing this order.
It definitely does. And it claims people who opposed the last administration's policies faced, well, a whole barrage of federal probes, and even things like funding cuts that hurt their communities, politically motivated cuts.
That comparison, third world weaponization, it sets a very high bar for the kind of misconduct being alleged here.
And to make it less abstract, the order points to a couple of specific situations. One is about someone getting jailed for posting a political meme, remember that? Caused a big stir about free speech online.
I do remember that case. Yeah, it raised lots of questions.
And the other example it uses is the perceived difference in how the Justice Department treated people involved in the January 6th Capitol events versus those involved in, say, BLM protests.
That's obviously a really contentious comparison. It touches on deep questions about fairness and whether the law was applied evenly, or if politics played a role in who got prosecuted and how.
So, putting all that context together, the executive order states its purpose very clearly: to ensure accountability for the previous administration's weaponization of the federal government against the American people.
So essentially, it's setting up a formal process to investigate these claims.
Yep.
So saying, okay, these are serious allegations, we need to look into them.
Exactly. It's the start of a review. It's not saying guilt found, but we need to find out.
Right. It establishes the framework for that potential finding.
Okay, so this order isn't just stating concerns, it's setting out a policy, all right? Let's break down what it actually directs the government to do. What are the key actions here?
Well, the core policy is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Find out if and where federal power, especially law enforcement and intelligence agencies, was misused for political ends in the past, and then figure out how to correct that.
Okay, identify and correct. Who's actually responsible for doing the identifying? Who's leading this review?
It assigns specific roles. First, the Attorney General is tasked with leading a review. He needs to work with the heads of all departments and agencies that have civil or criminal enforcement powers.
So, like the DOJ itself, obviously.
Right, DOJ, but it also specifically mentions the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Regulating Wall Street.
Exactly. And the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, which deals with consumer protection and antitrust stuff.
Yeah.
So quite a range.
That is a wide net. And what are they looking for during this review? What's the standard?
They're instructed to review everything they did over the last 4 years. The main goal is to spot any actions where the agency seemed to be acting contrary to the principles in this order.
Meaning acting for political reasons rather than legit legal ones.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Did it look like political targeting rather than genuine enforcement?
After they do this review, the Attorney General has to write up a report for the president, outlining findings and suggesting remedies. Recommendations for fixing things if problems are found. Okay, so that's the law enforcement regulatory side. What about the spies, the intelligence community?
Good question. There's a parallel track for them. The Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, is put in charge of a similar review covering the whole intelligence community.
CIA, NSA, FBI's intel side, all of them.
The DNI is meant to consult with the relevant agency heads, yes. Same time frame the last 4 years. Same goal, find any activities that seem to clash with the order's principles, suggesting political misuse.
And the DNI also writes a report for the president.
That's right, a separate report with findings and recommendations specifically for the intelligence community.
Okay, so two big reviews running side by side. Makes sense given their different missions. Is there anything else about how these reviews should happen, like rules of the road?
Yes, one really important point is about records. The order specifically tells all departments and agencies they must follow all the rules about keeping documents. No deleting emails or shredding files, basically.
And if they don't?
Non-compliance gets referred to the Attorney General. So they're trying to ensure the paper trail or the digital trail is there for the reviewers. Transparency seems key.
That makes sense. Now, does this order change what these agencies are allowed to do now, going forward? Does it limit their powers?
That's a crucial point the order addresses directly in its general provisions section. It explicitly says nothing in this order takes away or changes the existing legal authority of any department or agency.
So their current powers remain intact.
Correct. It also says it doesn't interfere with the Office of Management and Budget's role either. It really seems focused on looking back at past actions, not fundamentally restructuring things right now.
Okay, so it's retrospective. Are there any catches? Any, fine print?
There are a couple of standard but important caveats. It says the whole thing is subject to existing laws, and critically, it depends on the availability of appropriations.
Meaning it depends on Congress giving them the money to actually do these big reviews.
Potentially, yeah. Budget constraints and existing legal frameworks could influence how deep these reviews can actually go.
Okay, last question, and this feels important for listeners. If someone thinks, hey, maybe I was unfairly targeted, does this executive order give them a new way to sue the government or get some kind of remedy?
That's a really key clarification. The order is very explicit on this point. It states that it does not create any new legally enforceable rights or benefits for anyone against the U.S. government or its employees.
So it's an internal government policy, not a new tool for private citizens in court.
Exactly. It directs the government on how to police itself regarding these allegations, but it doesn't open new doors for individuals to bring lawsuits based solely on this order.
Okay, let me try and recap them. We have this executive order kicking off a major internal review process. It's led by the Attorney General for law enforcement and regulatory agencies and the DNI for the intelligence community.
Right.
They're looking back over 4 years of activity, trying to spot any potential politically motivated actions, weaponization, as the order calls it.
Mm-hmm. They need to report findings and suggest fixes to the president, making sure records are kept. But it doesn't change agencies' current powers. And crucially, it doesn't create new legal rights for individuals. That's a very accurate summary. It's the government setting out, on paper at least, a plan to investigate itself over a period where these kinds of allegations were, well, quite prominent.
So thinking about this whole thing, reviewing 4 years across so many powerful agencies, dealing with accusations of political bias, that just sounds incredibly difficult, doesn't it? What are some of the challenges you see inherent in actually doing this investigation effectively?
Oh, huge challenges. Defining politically motivated, accessing potentially classified information, ensuring impartiality within the agencies reviewing themselves.
Yeah.
It's a complex.
And looking forward, whatever these reviews find, or maybe even don't find. How do you think this whole process might affect people's public trust in federal institutions? It feels like a lot is riding on how this is perceived, right?